All right. Hello, everybody. So we're here to introduce Anna Nguyen, senior producer at Blind Squirrel Games, for a talk defining a producer. So, all right, take it away.
Cool. Hello, welcome everyone. So today we're going to be talking about defining a producer. So we're going to talk about one, what is a producer, what a producer does, who makes good producers, how do you get in production? You know, this is a really often misunderstood position. A lot of people going into it don't really have the full scope of the position. This is not a position that a lot of industries have. So when I tell people what I do, I obviously don't say producer. It's not something that other people can relate to outside of the video game industry. I normally say project manager, but that's not really accurate to the full scope of what a producer really does. So I'm Anna Nguyen. I'm a senior producer at Blind Squirrel Games. I've been in production for 15 years now, really entirely on the development side. So that's an embedded producer that's working directly with development teams. There are a lot of other different types of producers. You know, there are ones that specialize in localization or release management or more on the publisher side. But today we're really going to be talking about what is a development producer? What is a producer on the development team doing? I'm going to make sure we leave plenty of questions at the end here for everyone. So please let us know if you have questions, and we'll get to that at the end of this. All right, let's dive right in. So let's go high level overview. What is a producer? So I think the best term to describe it is support champion. You're making sure that your team is unblocked, that everyone knows what they need to do, that everyone has the right equipment, information, dependencies for what they're working on. If a producer is a good part in making the team run smoothly and the project really come together. They are a process guru. They are in charge of making sure that different processes and gates are met over the course of the project. And they are a project manager. They are the ones handling the schedules and the long-term planning for the project. But we're not doing this in a vacuum. A producer is the one that's putting it all together and getting that information and displaying it and disseminating it to the rest of the team. They are a partner to the leads. They're taking on responsibilities and assistance burden off of those leads to help them. They're the communication glue for the team. They're the ones making sure that information is disseminated to the team and making sure that people are connecting on what they need to work on. And they're giving a big picture guidance for the team. They're owning the schedule, but they're also a mediator for the team between individuals and departments. So I know that's a lot of really high level, a lot of broad things, which doesn't really describe nitty gritty what is actually a producer. But let's first dive into fact versus myth of what a producer is. So a lot of people think the producer is the boss, that they're driving decisions, which is usually not the case, especially for producers just getting to the industry. You are a leader and you're a manager, but you're facilitating decisions more than you are making actual decisions on the project. You are assisting other people. You are producing facts for other people to help other people make decisions on the overall project health. You're not mandating, you're facilitating. You might be a production expert, but you're never going to be a medium expert. Engineers are going to be experts in engineering, designers are going to be experts in design, and artists are going to be experts in art, etc. You're an expert in the development process and how all this comes together, but you are relying on the information from your teams to put together your schedules and the information for the project to complete, and you are driving that process. So again, high level, let's dive nitty gritty. What do producers do? So the obvious one that everyone thinks of when they think of a producer is they're doing the schedules and they're doing the planning for the project. And that's a really big, broad category because it can be everything from, hey, we're coming out of pre-production and we need to schedule for the entire project, start to finish. When do we think we can land this project in the end? When do we think we can ship? And then it's planning on the lower level. What are the specific tasks and dependencies, and how do we line things up to make sure this individual feature comes to fruition? It's a lot of flow of information. So producers, spend a lot of their days in email and verbal communication to the team. It's disseminating high level information. It's going back and forth with vendors to make sure they know what you need and what they need to deliver. It's information to the publisher and to the execs so they understand the high level for the project, so they understand how things are going. Uh, it's everything is on track, whether you need more resources to complete a certain part of the project, you know, etc. Um, a lot of people think of a producer as a middleman, but really, um, to really embrace communication is to try to not be that middleman, to try to make that connection, which is why I chose this screenshot of the telephone operator. You don't want to be the single point of information going in and out. You want to make sure I connect point person A and B on a strike team together working on a feature. If all the information goes through you and out through you, you're playing a really dangerous game of telephone. And really, if things are running appropriately, you're setting up processes so that you don't have to be that middle person, so the things work better because you're there, not depending on you being that one point of connection. A really big part of being a producer is being a driver. So an easy example of that is driving meetings. You want to be the one going into that meeting, you're laying out, why are we here? What do we need to accomplish in this meeting? And at the end of the meeting, a big part of that is going to be takeaways. The huge thing that a lot of people forget at the end of meetings is to write down, what do we learn from this? What are the action items we're going to take away from this meeting? Because you can all go into meeting, you can all come out thinking everyone understands, we're on the same page, and like, yes, we all agreed this is what's going to happen. Person X is moving on this feature. Well, person X thinks, hey, we all agreed on this. Person Y is taking on this feature, and if you're not agreeing on these minutiae at the end of the meeting, it's going to lead to confusion down the road. And that is really the point of meetings. You're not having meetings for the sake of meetings. You're having meetings to get information, to nail down action items to move forward with, to turn those into tasks, to turn those into a game. You are leading and putting together strike teams and making sure that those teams are moving forward appropriately. And a big thing, a big tool in the producer tool belt is ask questions, reiterate facts. At the end of a meeting, you're saying, okay, guys, we decided we're doing XYZ in this order, in this way. And the best tool in your tool belt is for people to correct you and have a discussion, because if there's confusion, you need to remove that confusion, make sure everyone's moving together with the same, overarching view of what's going on. Database management is a big one. And when I say database, I mean bug database, task database. You're lining up where things are happening, what's the information that needs to be in place for this, just putting in ticket to database, make X character is not going to get that character done. You want to set up all the dependency for that character. Okay, we're doing concept, model, rig, shaders, mocap, just keep going down the list. These are all the things that make up, in this example, a character. Line those up and make sure those dependencies happen, because the worst thing that can happen is if you get to a set task that's on the schedule and the person can't move forward with it because the last few steps in the chain aren't complete. And so that's really where a producer can help out and drive those, and making sure that everything is lined up. And it's not lining up, realign things, reorganize things to make sure that people are unblocked or can move to something else while they're blocked on a certain task. Contracts is a big one that producers do behind the scenes. This is with vendors, outsourcers, publishers. That's a big thing, is making sure everything, the I's and the T's are dotted and everything lines up and everyone understands what those deliverables are. We already went over task rank assignments. Process improvements. So not only as a producer are you driving the existing process in your studio, but you should also be looking for ways to improve that process. Where are things failing? Where are tasks getting dropped by the wayside repeatedly? What can we do to improve this? You know, a good example is you keep getting XFAR with assets, and then you get director feedback, and it completely changes that asset. In that case, you have to look at, when are the directors reviewing this? Can we review it earlier to make sure we're aligned before we take it XFAR, before we waste this time and go down this path, you know? And just looking for holes like that, you know? It's not about a gut reaction, oh no, this one thing happened, we need to prevent this from ever happening again. No, it's, if the same thing keeps happening, can we shift the process? Is there a better way to do this? Another one is risk mitigation planning. And this really boils down to seeing ahead. What are the roadblocks the team is going to hit? You know, it's really easy to live in the moment and encounter things and fix things that while they're happening, but it's another thing to be looking ahead. And the reason this is a really good tool for a producer is because your team is heads down a lot of the time. They're working on XYZ tasks. And they're not looking at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So it's on you to kind of, you know, groundhog up a little bit and look around and figure out what are the worries for the future and how do we prevent those and how do we provide visibility for those for the team. The last one is maybe the most important one, and what producers spend a lot of their time doing, which is follow-ups, 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 follow-ups. You know, you're in charge of following with team members on their tasks to make sure they understand that they're moving forward, that they're working on the right thing, that's the next priority on their task list. You know, you want to know, hey, is someone struggling with something? Do I need to help them? Do I need to provide more information? Do I need to shift another resource to this so this person can finish their task? You know, if anyone's struggling on something, you want to know early for that. If someone's given you a week-long estimate and it's really going to take 2 weeks, you want to know that early, shift things around so the thing that task is being blocked by, you don't run into a wall with that. You know, and as a producer, my best advice is never assume that everything is working as intended. Assume there will be road bumps, plan for those road bumps. You know, they're going to happen, but it's how you handle those when they come up. Okay. Tools of the trade. This is helpful for anyone who wants to get into production. What are some of the tools that producers use on a regular basis that would be helpful to get some experience in? So the first one, and your big tool for a producer, is your roadmap. So Microsoft Project is the most well-known one, but there's a lot of other tools for this that can create roadmap and line up your dependencies, and you can have your lovely waterfall graphs on tasks. So it's not just a tool in the sense that it's a software tool. Information is your best tool as a producer. Building realistic roadmaps and then seeing how the project falls out according to that roadmap is incredibly important. So say you've built a roadmap. You think, hey, it takes a month to build a level, and here are the steps to build that level. In practice, your team goes through that and, oh no, 1 year steps took a lot longer than you thought it would. So now you're going back and you're looking at the roadmap and you're saying, well, if we think this is now the truth, if this part of the level building process takes this amount of time. Let's extrapolate that out. And maybe we did not, adjust accordingly for this. Maybe there's an unknown factor that causes that be longer. And then obviously what's going to happen is your schedule doesn't fit anymore in the time frame. Everything extends out. And really is your job as a producer is to lay out based on facts, based on trends. Hey, this is what the schedule looks like now. This is our realistic time frame. Present the information. This is why this phase took longer than expected. This is why we think this is the real time estimate for the rest of these phases. And based on that information, what do we want to do? So that's asking the leads, that's asking the experts, that's asking the directors. This is the information. These are the bottlenecks. These are things that take longer. How do we adjust those to bring these in? Or do we, with this information, do less levels? Do we bring more resources on here to bring some of these in? Can we run things in parallel? Really, information is your best tool as a producer. Scrum and Agile are really the industry standards as far as project management. So getting a knowledge on these, taking classes on these, reading up on these is really going to help you. And it's really going to come up a lot in the interview process for basic questions on what is Scrum and Agile and how do these help the development process. Realistically, in practice, the game industry, not a lot of people will do really strict Scrum or Agile, or even use those terms, even though loosely game development is based on those processes. Excel is your ally. Data is your ally again. Fancy Excel formulas will be a lifesaver in the future. Listen, never do math anymore. All my math is done in Excel. Excel for spreadsheets, for tracking. Say you've got an asset spreadsheet. Here's all my props in the game. Here's all the information for these props. Here's the checkoff and the phases that these props need to hit. Here's the fancy color coding. When I shift this column to this, it colors the whole thing green. And it really helps with a lot of visibility for the team and knowledge. And the last one is your own personality. Listen, as a producer, the main thing your job revolves around is talking with people and getting information from the team and connecting team members. And really, if you've got a personality that works well, dealing with a lot of personality types, that's going to come in really handy as a producer. All right. Is production for you? So this is some of the high level things that help as a producer and might lead you toward whether production suits you well. One is obviously organization. If you're organized in your normal life, that'll translate to organization in production, because one of the jobs of a producer is to ensure everything is on track and nothing falls through the cracks. So that's a lot of moving plates, a lot of spinning things to handle. Planning ahead. If you're the person that plans out your family vacations and the level of detail, and if you've got spreadsheets upon spreadsheets for planning out your vacations, life, cooking experiments, whatever you're doing, that lends well to this mentality. As a producer, I put this as selfless, because a lot of times really you're putting the team first. It's the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So you've really got to be more about the team and how do we, one, empower them, and how do we move the project forward instead of trying to move yourself forward solely. Communication, both verbal and written communication are really key for a producer. Follow through is another big one. If you problem solver? Do you like puzzles? Do you like solving problems for people? Does it make you excited to check things off your list, to fit the pieces together, and solve things? Level-headed and handling stress well is another one. As a producer, sometimes you feel like it's on you to ensure that the schedule moves along smoothly and perfectly, and oftentimes it doesn't, and that is can be very stressful, and you got to stay level-headed in that situation because not only one, you want to make sure your own sanity and mental health is well. You also project your feelings onto the team as well. So you've got to be level-headed and steadfast for their benefit as well. Okay. How to get hired as a producer, which, by the way, I'll plug Jim's talk, Jim from Blind Squirrel. He's a recruiter who's been an embedded recruiter on development teams for many, many years. He's doing a talk tomorrow at 2 for how to get really hired for any position. But we'll go into producer first because it's a hard one. As a producer, you don't really have a portfolio, As a junior artist, you can go in, hey, here's the beautiful things I've created in 3D Max. Check them out. Check out the poly count and my texture skills. As a producer, it's a lot more about soft skills while you're starting out. So again, written verbal communication is key. A well-written resume will make you shine. How do you highlight your skills? And again, if you're going into this, you're not going to have any game industry experience you can put on here, but it's selling what you have done so far on other jobs unrelated during schoolwork, on school projects. How does that relate to this position? And practice your interview skills. Practice answering, the basic interview questions, basic questions about Agile and Scrum will really help you out because that will trip up a lot of junior producers. You'll get some very technical questions on project management during those. Show your personality. Really, what I look for when I look for junior producers is their personality going to work well with the team? Are they going to handle the unique personalities that you can field in the development team? Because that's really number one thing is going to help you is, do the developers want to work with you? Do the developers mind when you come and ask them questions, on what they're working on? Because that's a good part of the job is being on the developer's side and working with them on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, highlight your role in student projects. Be involved in student projects, game jams where you can. Apply wide. There are a lot of companies out there, a lot of which you've never heard of. Apply wide to those positions. It's regardless of what the role is. If you're only applying to the Blizzards and the EAs of the world, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. And really, when you're looking for production roles, there are not that many out there. When you think about how many producers are at a studio, it's a lot of time, one producer to 15 other developers, or 1 to 30, or sometimes there's only 1 to maybe 3 producers for an entire studio. It scales up as it goes up, but obviously producers are few and far between at studios compared to some other positions. And yeah, like everything in the game industry, it is very competitive to get in, to start out with. Your communication with HR recruiters during this process will obviously show on you, and how they perceive you and how they're telling the team about you will really affect your chances of getting hired as well. So it's not only communication skills during your interview, but it's the written verbal communication follow-up with HR, recruiters, etc. during that process. Are you working with them well? Are you following up on the position at normal intervals? Or are you annoying the recruiter by sending them emails asking questions? every single day, you know. And that, see, for positions, QA is a good entry point for people to get into production, to go from QA to senior QA or QA lead into production, because it's a good way to show your skills and show your communication and show your management skills over a set number of people in a closed environment in industry. So I've seen a lot of people in production come from QA, but obviously junior production positions with no experience exist out there. You can find them. What you're looking for really is titles like production coordinator, assistant producer, associate producer. Those titles are entry-level production positions to get into. The last point, and this is for everything for game industry positions, networking, 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 networking. You know, the people that, if you're in especially game development focused programs right now, the people you're working with right now, the people you're game jamming or working on student projects with right now, those are the people that are going to get hired in the industry. And the best foot in the door in the industry is a recommendation from someone already working at a company. You know, that gets your resume to literally the top of the list. So it's always good to keep in contact with your network to build that network of people leading up to being in the industry. And even when you're in the industry, that's again, your network, the people you've worked with in the past, the people that know you and can say, that person's not a serial killer and they're good at what they do, your resume is the top of the list. All right, let's go to, crammed through that pretty fast. Let's go to questions. Open to questions on production or really anything in the game industry in general.
Yeah, thank you so much for that talk, Anna. Let's see. We do have some questions that came in from our Discord and from Twitch chat. So let's go into Twitch chat first. All right. So first from Hello World. So this is touching on your, I suppose, your experience. You have 15 years of experience on all tons of IPs and consoles. So in your opinion, do you think the game industry starting to go against crunch will expand to other software industries?
Say that again? Oh, could you repeat that question? It's what will go into other industries? Hello?
Oh, hello.
What could you repeat that question?
I'm so sorry about that. All right. So the question was, do you think the game industry going against crunch will expand to other software industries and studios?
Yeah, I mean, crunch is an interesting one because that's obviously been a issue with the game industry for some time, is crunch, and then obviously burnout. You know, we talked about, it's obviously talked about a lot in the industry, is, you know, how we put a stop to this, you know, and there's a lot of movement towards that. And that's, yeah, I hope it obviously extends to other industries, but it is not, you know, obviously a solved problem for the game industry yet. It still obviously happens. And, as a producer, you want to be an advocate for your team. You want to avoid as much crunch as you can and for your project. And when you start seeing that, you know, you obviously have to make hard decisions about how to address that. There's it's the triangle of, your production dependencies. You know, do you add resources / money to the project to address the issue? Do you extend the project? How do you avoid things that have happened on other projects that have led to crunch in the past? So yeah, I don't think it's certainly not a solved problem for the industry right now, but it is something that other industries can and should take to heart.
Yeah, thank you for a thoughtful answer. All right, moving right along. So this is from Too Pretty to Die on Twitch. This is about networking. How do you maintain professional relationships?
Ah, that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, following up with people, that you've worked with in the past, staying communication, checking in with them on LinkedIn is another good one. Congratulating them when they've moved on to another positions and kind of keeping up, just like you're building any, friendship. It's keeping contact act with people you've worked in the past, see what they're working on, check in every once in a while. um, obviously the person that you're talking to on a similar regular basis, the person you've talked in the last few years, is going to be a better recommendation if they've actually heard from you and you haven't been a ghost for the last 10 years.
Yeah, a good answer. All right, moving right along. Another question from Hello World. I suppose they asked, do the group projects in class count? And I suppose that can be related to both networking and like any resume, anything you can put in your resume. So how are you consider group projects for class, games or otherwise?
How do I consider group projects?
Do they? Yeah, their exact question was, do the group projects in class count? I suppose for either
Oh,
networking or resumes.
yes. I think group projects do count. It's obviously it's tricky to put some of these things on resume because obviously there's a kind of a visceral reaction if you see like I was the CEO of my student project, and but it's good to include that under your education as well. Obviously your resume is going to be a little lighter starting out, but you've got room on there for one, here's my education paragraph, what I've learned, and here's a paragraph about some of the student projects and how I what my role in them was. It's a lot less about listing facts, but how you helped facilitate and move some of those projects forward. A lot of what will help build your resume is how you worked in the past with teams, either on group projects, um, at work, or and volunteer work as well. If you're volunteering for things like SGDA, how have you worked with a community of people in the past? A lot of questions you'll get obviously on your resume are related to for production will be on how to resolve conflict is a question you should always be prepared for and have answers for. And obviously you don't expect someone to have a game industry example of that. We want real world examples of how you've handled that with friends, coworkers, other students. How do you deal with them well? So, and definitely in a cover letter, mentioning your role in a student project is always beneficial as well.
Yeah, hope everyone listening in who may be a current student may find that answer helpful. Group projects, everybody. All
Yep,
right.
yep, your projects.
All right, so now Connor Ellis from Discord asks, what would you say is the best way of finding out how fast your team members can work on their parts of the project?
How fast is and how fast they can get things done.
Yeah.
So, all right, this goes into the mythical schedule and how to make your schedules realistic. So, one is you in a game industry, you're going to look for information from first your leads for how long you think things are going to take, then follow up that information and ask the question for the person actually working on it, how long do they think it should take. Always assume that you need a buffer on that. I normally do 20% buffer. You assume that sometimes people are going to be sick, meetings take up a chunk of time, there's unknown things that are discovered while you're working on something. So it's take their estimate, buffer 20%, and that's how you build out the initial schedule. Obviously, one thing, even veterans of the industry, people who've been working in the industry for several years, time estimates are hard. They obviously get easier if you've done that exact same thing before. You'll be more accurate, but a lot of times you're doing things completely unique for a project or in a different way or in a different engine than you've done before, and it's going to take a different amount of time. you know so you're using historical data as well to get those estimates on one, things you've done on that project, and two, estimates that person has given you in the past, because maybe that person is more optimistic with their estimates, and you've got to one, uh x down the line, design, show them their estimates and show them how long it actually took and help them improve their time estimate skills, because that's a skill that really is a really tough one to build, because obviously even in our normal lives, we think, yeah, this is only going to take me an hour, but you're not accounting for, you know, what if my computer starts smoking? Oh, yep, I can't finish that PowerPoint in the hour because I don't have a computer. That's an extreme example, but things happen. Not everything always goes perfectly. So my short answer is one, ask the person working on the task. They should be the one giving you estimates. Two, historical data. Three, how how close are that person's estimates. Normally start adjusting their estimates to a certain degree if you think they're off in one way or another. And then again, historical data is your friend. You're going to see over time will prove whether those time estimates and how much you're buffering them by is accurate.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so Everett asks, in your opinion, other than QA, what department do you see producers coming from the most?
That is a tough one. The answer is rarely do producers come from other departments. Rarely does someone, come up the art track, get to mid-level artist and all of a sudden decide, I want to be a producer. Sometimes they'll come up the art track and get shifted into more of an art outsourcing role, which kind of transitions into that producer realm. But normally I don't see a lot of people coming out of other departments into production. There is obviously roles that are similar to production for those departments, like there could be an engineer that runs up the engineering track and gets to a position called like assistant director, where they're helping with some of that, scheduling and team management processes that a producer does. Obviously community management to production, I've seen that transition as well. Sometimes, or marketing to production, some of those more soft skills, project management oriented positions. But yeah, most producers, come up from, either straight from production, you know, or, a related field, or QA. A lot of producers I know come out of QA because it's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door.
Great, thank you a lot for the detailed answer. All right, now Peter asks, or actually it's more of a quote. For some context, Peter says, I often would ask other staff members how their team facilitates a team environment. What role could a producer play in ensuring various team members have an agreed upon basis for how they could finish a game?
Agreed upon basis for how to finish a game. Yes, that's all right. I'll answer. So, how does a producer ensure that people are all on the same page and know how to finish a game? So we'll go into short term. So short term, say we'll do a smaller section of the game. So say you're working on a specific feature, and you've got X amount of developers that you're going to dedicate to this feature, and you're throwing them on a strike team to build this feature. The first thing you need is a rough paper written design on what are the goals of this feature that need to be achieved. What is the time, if there's a certain time frame it needs to be achieved in, and are there high level goals outside of that team it needs to achieve for any specific reason, for any marketing reason, for any design reason, for how that feature needs to hook into the rest of the game, for how it needs to relate to the rest of the game. Like say you're doing a multiplayer mode, you are beholden to a lot of the systems from the other game, from the rest of the single player game that you want to incorporate into that multiplayer mode. So as a producer, it's one, ensuring that information is upfront, that you have those dependencies for any other departments, for what the high-level directors, owners, senior designers want to see with that feature. And then hopefully, if you've got a strike team starting on this early enough, they can take those high-level goals and then turn them into a more detailed game design doc. You know, you want to give that team, if you can, ownership over driving the nitty-gritty of that design. You know, give them high-level inspiration. As a producer, you are running kickoff meetings with that team to ensure that they are talking with all the dependencies that need to, that they are getting direction from the directors or other drivers from that on that. Um, and then you're driving forward that design under that mentality, under those goals. So on a day-to-day basis, that's making sure that the decisions that that team is making shift that design, or if anything starts varying from those high-level goals, or if anything starts getting out of scope, that you're asking the right information and you're making the right shifts in the project to accommodate that. You know, if suddenly your multiplayer strike team says, we need to add, you know, jetpacks. Jetpacks will solve multiplayer. It will make it amazing. Well, that's a little bit outside the scope of that team. Maybe it's the greatest idea ever. You need to figure out, one, is that in scope of your current strike team? Does that align to the high level goals of the team? Do you need other members of the development team outside of your strike team to either come into your strike team to complete that task? You know, it's coordination of all of that. You know, and as a producer, you're kind of a holder of that information and those high level goals, but you want to always be driving the team toward those and asking the questions, you know, is this in service of the goals we set out to do? Or if it's not, are those goals still accurate? And if they're not accurate, you're making those connections, you're getting those directors, high level owners in the same room and on the same page about whether this change in direction is the correct way to move forward. And then obviously you're making sure that everything is moving forward on time and driving towards that goal.
All right. Thank you so much for that answer. So we're just about ready to close out your talk. But as a closing question, and this might tie into like your any last minute remarks for the audience. So what's something that you may have wished that you knew all the way back, like before when you were just starting out, before like 15 years of experience? So what's something that you wish